every nation, in every clan. The elders to a person understood a sacred plan and shared a common truth, one truth to understand. The spirit of the people is equal to the power of the land. The mother of us all, the sacred Mother Earth, is constant in her giving and perpetual in her birth. In meadows and in fields, where weeds and flowers grow, she conceives the summer showers and spawns the winter snows.
Thanks for joining us to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day and National Indigenous History Month.
During these times, the Gord, Downie, and Chanie Wenjack Fund continues to bring Indigenous and non-Indigenous people together digitally to learn more about the true history of Indigenous people in Canada and to share and celebrate history, knowledge, and talent.
Inspired by Chanie's story and Gord's call to action to try and build a better Canada, the Gord, Downie, and Chanie Wenjack Fund is trying to build a cultural understanding and create a path of reconciliation to Indigenous and non-Indigenous people.
Our goal is to improve the lives of Indigenous people by building awareness, education, and connections between all Canadians.
We ask you all to simply do something.
Oni, Bojo, Sego, Tanse, greetings. I'm Duke Redbird, which in my language is Mugwump Mesquabeneje. I'm an elder of the Turtle Clan, member of the Saugeen First Nation territory, and I'm very pleased to be with you today. It's a pleasure and an honor to share with you the traditions of the Indigenous community and to acknowledge and remember that we are all children of our Mother, the Earth. Traditionally, our communities believe that the Earth is as alive and sentient as any human being. We believe that she has all of the characteristics that we ourselves possess as her children. In our beliefs, the hierarchy of creation starts with Mother Earth. The Indigenous world acquired wisdom and enlightenment and formed a symbiotic relationship with nature that did not require a written language, books, libraries, schools, universities, or civil and religious institutions. Neither kings, armies, police forces, magistrates, judges, or prisons, coins, currency, or banks, factories, guilds, or poorhouses, and most important of all, concepts of deeded land ownership. The mother was worshipped as the mother of us all and of all creation. Now in Canada, the Indigenous people were friends with the English and the French and helped the early settlers to secure colonies and trading posts on the territories occupied for thousands of years by Indigenous people. In Toronto, these nations included the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Mississaugas of the Credit. The settlers were invited to live amongst us and share the land and resources with the treaty called A Dish with One Spoon. We did not sell the land, it was never conquered, and we never agreed to give up our traditional rights to self-determination and governance. Land acknowledgements are not about ownership of land. We do not believe that we can own the land, but rather we are simply stewards of the land and borrow its use for a brief time from our children. Our Mother Earth has inspired great art and great ideas and wrapped them in wisdom that has been shared with the world in so many incredible ways. In this era of multivarious platforms of information, let us not forget that the origin of all knowledge and wisdom comes from a platform called Mother Earth. Our reality is governed in a large part by what we pay attention to. If we pay more attention to technology than to nature, We will have a world that is not balanced. It will be a world that is logical, sequential, linear, mathematical, and engineered, great only for robots. But we are humans, and we need imagination, intuition, creativity, emotion, and art in our environment. Seeing the bigger picture that surrounds us rather than the details that are offered to us on our cell phones and devices. Our cities of the future need to be well balanced between the technology we use as tools and nature that we use as inspiration. The indigenous people have lived on these lands since time immemorial in a symbiotic relationship with nature. And we have a lot of experience to share with the modern world that is experiencing a crisis of sustainability and pandemic. The city of the future needs to be both a playground and a sandbox. We take our cues from the eagles having two capacities. One is where we use our wings to fly, and the other is where we use our beaks to acquire food and shelter. Imagination and creativity is liberation, and innovation and invention is self-preservation and security. The architects and designers of the future have to have both the wisdom of an elder and the wonder of a child.
Hi, I'm Crystal Shawanda. I'm Ojibwe Potawatomi from the Weequahic unceded First Nations, a community that is progressive, resilient, and beautiful. For me, National Indigenous Month is about being proud of who we are, celebrating where we've been and where we're going. We do that by sharing our stories of our traditions and our culture, and even the ones that are painful to tell, like that of Chanie Wenjack. I too come from a family that has had generations that have attended residential schools. That impact has trickled down through intergenerational trauma that we as a people are still healing from today. We heal by finding our way back to who we are, relearning our language, and taking pride in our identity. And I'm very proud to be supporting the Gord, Downie, and Chanie Wenjack Fund. Miigwech.
Scano. My name is Carly Gillian Jenkins. I am Cayuga Nation Turtle Clan from Six Nations of the Grand River. I am the State Evidence Coordinator at the Woodland Cultural Center. The Mohawk Institute Residential School operated in Brantford, Ontario from 1828 to 1970. It was primarily a boarding school for First Nations children from Six Nations, as well as other communities throughout Ontario and Quebec. It served as a key tool in the effort to assimilate First Nations children from Europeanized Christian society and sever the continuity of culture from parent to child. The Mohawk Institute building itself is one of only a handful of residential school buildings left standing in Canada, one of only 2 in Ontario, and the only one which has offered guided tours up until its closure for essential repairs. Today, I am speaking to you from inside the walls of the Mohawk Institute Residential School. I'm standing in what was formerly the boys' playroom. This room did not have toys, and often lateral violence would take place here. You will be hearing from survivor Geronimo Henry today.
My name is Geronimo Henry. I'm from Six Nations. I'm from the Cayuga Nation Turtle Clan, and my spirit name is Atahine. I arrived at the residential school November 11th, 1942. My dad left the family, so my mom couldn't look after us, so she put us in the residential school. And I was at the school for 11 years, so I left the school in 1953. There was 4 of us, my brother Charlie and my 2 sisters, Marion and Bella. And so I think my mom signed us over to the school, like to the federal government, I guess. We were just like, I guess we were just all crying because we knew my mom was gonna like leave us here, leave us at the school. We'd done like a group hug, and then and then my mom left. When she left, anyway, we all got done crying, I guess, and the supervisor came and took me and my brother, and we went down the hall in the school and sat me on a chair and cut all our hair off. You know, and then after that, we were led down another room, and we took our clothes off that we came with, and they had school clothes of the Mohawk, the residential school. So the supervisor says, everybody has a number here. So there was 75 boys there and 80 girls there all the time when I was there. So to my brother, he said, your number's 36, and Geronimo, your number's 48. I didn't know how to, well, I guess you could say, I didn't know how to act in the real world after. It's almost, to me, it's almost like somebody spending 11 years in prison, you know, and then they come out, and then you got to readjust to all the differences from the time you got in till you left. How it affected me, like in the school, I spent my whole childhood there, you might as well say, right, from 6 till 16. So you don't get no parental guidance from like your parents, you know, like, so nobody told me they loved me, like in 11 years. I imagine that's about the most important part of, you know, of your life when you're a kid. And so no hugs and stuff like that when you're at the school, eh? Nobody hugs you, and nobody tells you they love you. There's no like bonding like how you bond with your parents and that. They take you to hockey games or ballet or whatever, you know, and just to go with your parents someplace, you know, it's kind of like you're bonding with your kids. But so you don't get none of this stuff. So when I left there, I had a lot of anger, resentment, and I just kind of like started drinking, you know. So it kind of, I just started drinking, and actually like I just drank more, and that lasted like 25 years, you know, 25 years being an alcoholic. And that's kind of like how it affected me. And finally I sobered up, and I wanted to help. I wanted to help other survivors of the residential school.
The song that we're gonna do is a song that we wrote about depression, and it just kind of wrote itself. This is called Bigger Than the Blues. touchdown in your troubled mind. There's no peace you'll find, just the blues. And you try so hard just to find a smile, but it's been a while, that's the truth. When you're strong like a river and tall like a mountain, then you're bigger than the blues. In your heart, you believe it. In your soul, you can feel it. That you're bigger than the blues.
I started producing art when I was a child, and I started reflecting the environment around me. Morrisseau is one of those famous Indigenous artists that kind of inspired me. I saw these pictures, really beautiful pictures in the paper, and it was Norval Morrisseau's work. And even if I didn't understand my culture back then, something in the blood woke up when I saw that work, and I continue it even today. Because there's a need to have our Indigenous voice and philosophy and cosmology out there, I felt that this was a great place to come and bring that into an important location and hopefully inspire some people that would see that table. It's made up of all these different animals, and each one of the animals has an attribute that contributes to community. The Marten is the one that is a protector of our community. He would go out, people in that clan would go out and do battle and protect our community and defend us whenever needed. And that deer is a representative of how we would care for our young ones. And so the reason why the deer is chosen to look after the children is because they're gentle. The central figure was going to be the turtle. So even though the table's in a square, there's still this kind of idea that there's a circle being formed. Square thinking can't hold on to the idea that somehow the idea wants them to get away from the square. I'm hoping that people will be inspired not only by the design, but be inspired to ask the question, what does it all mean? For me, to pass that heritage on to non-Indigenous people is number one.
What I want for the future generations, like the 7 generations coming up, is to get back their language, culture, and ceremonies. So, because that's basically what residential schools took away from all those kids that went there. So we want them to be aware too, like of these schools, of what happened. They should always remember these residential schools, you know, like and what happened there. So none of these schools could ever, come into existence again.
Hey everyone, I'm Johnny, aka Wolf Saga, and you're about to see 2 performances. First one's called Keep Dancing. I think it's important to make music that empowers us, that inspires. So I guess that's my little sort of message to other Indigenous artists, and try to keep others in mind when you're creating these works, and just have fun with it too.
Starts off with a wave coming through your stereo. Your body feels the groove and your feet move across the floor. Some days they'll be tough and they just won't understand, but you have it in yourself. See the ways in which they can, swaying side to side, moving left to right, up and down.
Our legacy space at Express Scripts Canada is in the perfect location because everyone who works at or visits our head office is given the opportunity to learn about the Chanie Wenjack story, the history that it represents, and provides an opportunity to act in the name of reconciliation. We're very proud of our space and our commitment to the Downie Wenjack Fund.
In the past, before European contact, the indigenous nations had cities. We maintained orderly social structures. We interacted and traded with our neighbors. We raised our young, honored our old, in short, fed, sheltered, and doctored ourselves without taxes or organized enforcement agencies to ensure adherence to the rules. Without coins, currency, or banks, our communities and cities were built around centers of ceremony and worship. North American cities today are built around the marketplace. An indigenous compromise to this dichotomy for the future would be to bring nature into the city rather than the city into nature, recognizing that the future of all existence and humankind is dependent upon a robust and sacred relationship with Mother Earth. I'd like to share with you this poem called A Dish with One Spoon. The Mississauga Nation welcomed settlers from across the seas when they arrived in their territories. Such beauty revealed before their eyes was beyond their ability to describe. In all the languages that they spoke, there were no words that could evoke with any clarity any single thought that Mother Nature's splendor brought. It was through the indigenous tongues that they learned from the language of the earth in all her idioms. Toronto from TKARONTO, trees standing in the water, a meeting place where small fish could gather. Nearby hills where alders grow, that was called Etobicoke. And in the autumn before the winter snow, the passenger pigeons rested in Mimico. And to the west, where the great waters flow, the lake and the lands were called Ontario. Migizi, the eagle, soars high with prayers to Manitou. And along the shore beside the beach, Wagush, the fox, leads her baby kits out to teach how butterflies pollinate, then flutter out of reach. The Mississauga people smudge and launch their birch bark canoes. Three sisters, corn, bean, and squash, the planting season has begun. Tobacco is offered a gift to grandfather's son. Sage, sweetgrass, and cedar to grandmother moon. There is peace, joy, and contentment in the treaty lands called A Dish with One Spoon.
Early in the history of Bullfrog Power, Gord Downie was like a major supporter of our mission, which is to help Canadians transition away from fossil fuels as a means of fighting climate change. It was only natural for us to find Indigenous issues as part of that mandate. Using the legacy space as a host for external meetings, when we're in the Downie Wenjack room, or the legacy room as they call it, it's an entry point to talk about those things.
See You Again is very special to me because I wrote it for my friend a couple years ago when he lost his mother, and unfortunately I lost my dad this past summer, so the song's kind of made its way back to me, and I really hope you enjoy them, and happy Indigenous Day.
The song goes out to anybody who's lost someone, or if you're missing someone during these unfortunate times we're living in right now. This also goes out to my father, John. I miss you, buddy. When I was growing up, you gave me comfort. Made sure I kept a clear head. Filled the days with wonder and stories by my bed. And I hope I see you again. And I won't let the memory fade, or forget the things you said. 'Cause in reflections of my face, well, I see you there, looking back, and I know we'll meet and I'll see you again. 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 I'll see you. I'll see you again. I'll see you again.
This room is just incredible. To be in here is such a wonderful feeling. And I think that inclusion and diversity mostly is really about the feelings and the feeling of belonging. So this is a really important step for us in our journey for IND.
We are a great Canadian company, and our employees deserve to know the history in this country, and the legacy space gave us a beautiful space to promote that message.
People are sometimes afraid of what they don't know, and this legacy space is meant to create that conversation, because if we all understand each other on a very basic human level, that's reconciliation.
So grateful that through something like the Downie Wenjack Legacy Space, we're reminded to go learn.
I'd like to say thank you to Rogers for not only committing to opening up a Downie Wenjack Fund legacy space, but for taking it so far. It's an amazing step forward for a really progressive company.
As you can see, Canada's urban centres are full of rich Indigenous history and cultures.
Thanks for joining us to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day and National Indigenous History Month.
She plants the knowledge of the power of the land. And in every blade of grass, the earth has answers to every question asked. And those that honor her creations, acknowledge her grand design. She gives templates of the sacred, the patterns of the divine, and then with certain knowledge, this to understand that the spirit of the people is equal to the power of the land.
I'd also like to say a very special thank you to TD Ready Commitment. We simply couldn't be doing this without you.
When they begin to say